south of Chile, there's a magical place. This is the archipelago of Chiloe, which was the last stronghold of the Spanish conquistadors in Latin America. It was here, in this isolation, that the fusion of European and indigenous people created a unique cultural landscape, firmly rooted in the sea and land, and in religious devotion. As a result, this archipelago has a unique Latin American flavor, evident in the local lifestyle, from the cuisine to the unique Chilote religious architecture that now is protected with World Heritage status. The buildings here lend themselves as proof of this devotion. The large, distinctive churches found in this region are tangible manifestations of the cultural merge that is Chiloe. Chiloé Island is the largest island in the Chiloé Archipelago off the coast of Chile in the Pacific Ocean. The island is located in the south of Chile, covering an area of just over 8,000 square kilometers. Chiloé is the second largest island in Chile and the fifth largest in South America. It is 190 kilometers long from north to south and between 55 and 65 kilometers wide. In the past, numerous glaciations have dredged the narrow Chacao Channel to the north. These waters separate Chiloé Island from mainland Chile. The archipelago remained physically isolated from the mainland for centuries, gradually giving rise to the island's unique and fascinating flavor. Today, a well-organized network of ferries carries most of the transport requirements along the archipelago. An easy and fascinating way to commute between islands. Today, getting around the archipelago is an easy routine, thanks to the development of modern-day ferries. But a century ago, the only way of leaving an island was by means of sailing boat, relying on the power of wind to get around. Once you set foot on the main island, there's a sense of stepping onto a land rich in history, myth, and legends. On this island, the landscape challenges the senses. Colors, flavors, textures, sounds, and a marine breeze produce an intoxicating mix found nowhere else on the planet. Here, people, land and sea merge and give birth to the unique Chilote culture, renowned for its hospitality and craftsmanship. Something also noted by the great naturalist and explorer Charles Darwin on his visit to this island in 1835. For centuries, the land and the rich Pacific Ocean have produced an abundance of fresh food for the islanders. Today, fresh products are still traded in vibrant markets across the island. Live ducklings and chicks are sold for those who want to start or restock a farm. Generous portions of seaweed or nori are sold in blocks, as seaweed has been a much sought-after food in this region for thousands of years. A well-provided natural drugstore of indigenous herbs takes care of most maladies. But the undisputed queen of this island is the potato, sold here in all colors and shapes. Chiloe is famous for its diversity of potatoes. These potatoes are adapted to the long summer days of the temperate zone, where most of the world's potatoes are grown today. The great varieties of potatoes found on the island not only display different skin colors, shapes, textures and sizes, but are also more resistant to diseases, insects, and more tolerant to drought. These beautiful potatoes are nature's gold, a genetic reservoir with the potential for adapting commercial potato varieties to withstand the fast climate changes facing the future. They are a biological treasure that the Chilote people have cherished for centuries. Some old traditions still remain in these markets today. Here, potatoes and other products are sold not by the kilo, but instead by a measurement of volume called the almud, an ancient Arab measurement brought to this land by the Spanish conquistadors. It's not surprising that in this archipelago, potatoes are the most popular food, consumed in all forms. This is a type of potato bread called milcao. The bread is made with a mixture of raw and cooked potatoes, mixed with lard and filled with deep-fried pork. These white balls are made of potato flour, that will later be roasted in thin layers to be eaten immediately. This is also the only place on earth where you'll find a dish called chochoka, a kind of giant potato barbecue. The preparation involves a copious amount of potatoes that are peeled and boiled and later mashed and mixed with flour and lard to produce a smooth dough. To set this mix around a hot wooden rolling pin requires great skill and determination. This is a team effort, as the dough needs to be placed in small sections to cover the entire wooden pin. Once the rolling pin is completely covered, the cooking process starts and continues until a golden and even crust is formed. The final stage is to fill the giant gnocchi-like dough with a mix of deep-fried pork meat and lard, after which the dough is rolled and cut into generous portions. Surrounded by a very productive ocean, the potatoes are complemented by the abundance of fish and shellfish. Traditional preservation of shellfish with smoke ensures that dried clams and sea squirts are consumed all year round, a practice that long predates the presence of the modern fridge on this island. Here, fresh shellfish is also sold ready to eat or in the shell by the kilo. Fresh fish are brought daily to these markets, and in the past, only indigenous fish were sold here. Today, the large-scale activities of aquaculture in southern Chile have introduced salmon that is becoming one of the largest commercial export industries, rapidly changing the marine landscape and the economy of this region. The salmon that you see at this market are mostly fish that escaped enclosures and are now forming a wild population with unforeseen ecological impacts on the marine ecosystem of southern Chile. But for now, the people of Chiloe enjoy living in one of the few locations where a kilo of fresh salmon will cost you no more than $7 US. The Chilote people have subsisted for centuries on potatoes and the abundant seafood found around the archipelago. Some old methods of traditional cooking are still alive today, although somewhat modified and geared for the ever-growing tourist market. In this traditional dish, sea and land meet on a hot bed of stones. This is called curanto. Originally, this was prepared directly on the ground, but today a permanent concrete pit can also do the job. A very hot fire is used to heat up a bed of stones, that are then spread out to form a hot rocky bed of even temperature. A layer of clams and mussels is spread over the hot rocks. Another layer is added to the curanto, this time potatoes, sausages, and 2 types of raw traditional potato bread, kept in plastic bags so the steam can cook them. To prevent the steam from escaping, a layer of native nauka leaves, a kind of wild rhubarb plant, is added to cover the shellfish. The even distribution of breads over the steaming pile is done carefully to ensure that each one is cooked to perfection. Once a layer is completed, more nauka leaves are added to the growing food pile. To ensure a tighter closure, a large plastic cover is finally used to seal the dish. After a few hours, the curanto is ready. There is no use for cooking utensils here, but only an experienced hand can endure the burning hot shells. Generous portions of shellfish are mixed with the potato bread, and large pieces of pork and chicken are added. This traditional dish will certainly satisfy the hungriest traveler visiting Chiloe. This archipelago is well known for its rich culinary history, rooted in the sea and land. Large pieces of pork, beef or lamb are a typical Criollo-style barbecue done over a very hot fire that seals the outer layer of the meat, maintaining the juicy center. The festival requires large amounts of meat and many helping hands. Staying by the fire is mostly a man's work, and they need to stay well hydrated. Empanadas required teamwork from the women. This involves the preparation of a dough that gets filled with seafood, meat or cheese, and finally deep fried just before serving. It's summer in Chiloe, and the sun warms up the marine landscape. Chiloe has long and cold winters and sunny days a few. Traditionally, fire and wool are the two ways to keep warm. Weaving with wool is a necessity of the island lifestyle, and the women of the Chiloé Archipelago have turned weaving into an art. Working wool still involves the use of old traditional tools. With the increase in tourism, women from this island have taken the initiative to expand their beautiful and colourful weaving industry, and their products are displayed in vibrant craft markets. Using many products from the indigenous forest, the wool is dyed to create a soft color palette. Each design is unique with a personal touch and requires many hours of skillful work. In this market, it's very difficult for customers to decide which garment to take home. Meanwhile, the artist's creation continues to flow from her skillful hands to the wool. The variety of cloth designs and accessories is astonishing, a true mirror of the unique craftsmanship of the women of Chiloe. Not far from the market, there's a marine landscape adorned by colourful wooden boats of all sizes and shapes. Chiloe is a maritime world, and here boats have been used for centuries for the transport of cargo and for fishing along the archipelago. The Chilote people live by the rhythm of the tides, weather, and winds. The craftsmanship of the wood carpenters of Chiloe is legendary. This unique skill of working with native wood is a trademark of Chiloe and deeply rooted in the culture of the island. In the past, this was an immensely difficult task. Using only hand tools, these incredible ships were built with time and skilled workmanship. These curved wooden beams were bent into shape by placing them in metal pipes filled with hot water and leaving them over a fire to boil. Softening the planks gave the builders an opportunity to warp them into the desired contours necessary for the construction of these magnificent vessels. Chiloe also has a unique architecture that includes these palafitos, or wooden houses on stilts, built close to shore, where the fisherman can virtually step onto his boat at high tide. Many houses in town also display this peculiar style of wooden construction. It also permeates into their unique and rather European-looking wooden churches. The main raw building materials came from the abundant temperate forest of the archipelago. Today, few patches remain, and several are protected as conservation areas. These humid and lush forests are an enchanting landscape, with many rivers flowing to the ocean. For the first-time visitors, it's hard to understand how this fascinating mixture of cultural and maritime landscape has developed only in this archipelago in the southern part of Chile. To appreciate the unique character of the Chiloé Archipelago, we need to step back in time. Chiloé's history began with the arrival of the first human inhabitants more than 10,000 years ago. The original people that lived along the coast of the Chiloé Archipelago were skillful seafarers who used wooden planked boats called dalcas. Later, from the mainland, came another group of native people who settled on the eastern shores, practicing agriculture and fishing. Their diet consisted of a variety of fish, seafood, and cooked vegetables, such as potatoes and corn, and they called this region Place of Seagulls. The character of the archipelago was deeply changed when the Spanish conquistadors arrived in Chiloé in the 16th century and found a rather pleasant and receptive indigenous population living from the land and sea. The traditional Spanish encomienda system was soon applied, whereby the indigenous people paid tribute to the Spanish crown by working for the settlers in return for food and religious instruction. The process of evangelization soon started with the Jesuits, who arrived in 1608. The Jesuits introduced the circular mission system in the 17th century, and this was continued by the Franciscans in the 18th and 19th century. The circular system involved religious groups who made annual tours by boats around the archipelago during the summer months, staying for a few days at each location. At first, these missions were not permanently inhabited, but over time the Jesuits began building chapels and accommodation for their members. These were constructed with the help of nearby communities, using local materials and techniques. By the end of the 19th century, farmers, fishermen, boat builders and carpenters working together with the priests built over 100 wooden churches, of which 50 to 60 stand to the present day. They form a unique fusion of European and indigenous cultural traditions with the highest expression of craftsmanship in wood. Chiloé remained isolated from mainland Chile and became one of the last Spanish strongholds in South America. Chiloé people were deeply loyal to the Spanish crown, and this archipelago only became part of the Chilean Republic in 1818, 8 years after the independence on the mainland. These wooden churches are iconic monuments that represent the unique history and deep spiritual devotion of the people of Chiloé, and bear witness to a fusion of indigenous and European cultural traditions, producing a unique form of wooden architecture. All of them are distinguished by an indigenous tradition of building in wood, strongly influenced by boat-building techniques. These buildings have been called the most significant wooden structures in all of Latin America and symbolize a true mestizo culture developed from Aboriginal and Jesuit ideals. The international recognition of this unique Chilote religious architecture took place in 2000, when a total of 16 churches on Chiloé were designated as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The 16 churches are concentrated in the central eastern zone of the archipelago. Unlike classical Spanish colonial architecture, the churches of Chiloé are made entirely from native timber, with extensive use of wood shingles. These churches were built using the best local timber to resist the archipelago's humid and rainy oceanic climate. They're built on hillsides so as to avoid flooding during heavy rains, and are raised off the ground. The north sides are protected from the storms, which generally come from this direction. These are fully enclosed structures that need to withstand heavy rain and strong winds. The churches are rather large, with pitched roofs. The most typical feature of these buildings is the tower facade, facing the esplanade and made up of an entrance portico, the gable wall, and the tower itself. The tower is the dominating vertical feature, both as a religious element supporting the cross and also as a beacon for sailors. The tower is built with 2 to 3 stories, with hexagonal or octagonal drums to reduce wind resistance. The buildings are longer than they are wide, and they conform with a basilican ground plan, with 3 aisles, only the center one extending to the back wall. The aisles are separated by solid wooden columns which support a huge beam that forms the ridge. In most cases, the nave is barrel vaulted, and the flanked aisles have flat ceilings. They may seem similar, but a close look reveals the exquisite details that make each church a unique piece of wooden architecture, forged by the spiritual needs of the people of each region. This is the Church of Achao, built around 1740, and listed as one of the oldest churches in Chile at the time when the archipelago was still part of the Spanish crown possessions. This is one of the oldest traditional churches on the island, and survives almost intact from the Jesuit mission era. The exterior building has a simple but attractive texture, with the natural colors of the weathered wood. The skeleton is made of cypress wood, and their joints are attached with wooden pegs instead of nails. Stepping inside this church is another experience. Here, local carpenters using native wood have created a complex and intricate artwork with a strong Baroque style. This is a church with a unique central dome, divided into 5 parts. The complexity of the woodwork inside the church is outstanding, and the altar is particularly intricate. The wooden floors of the church were hand-carved using an axe, giving it its irregular texture. A few kilometers away, we find the church of Chonchi. This building is located at the heart of the town of Chonchi, and its construction dates back to 1893. The town stands on a slope, and it is known as the three-story city, with a church located at the top of the slope with a wide view of the town and the coast. The church has a colourful entrance with pillars and arches. The tower was built with 2 octagonal drums. Inside there is a large blue vault dotted with white stars. The architecture of this church was inspired by the European neoclassical style that emphasizes the walls and maintains separate identities of each part. This is another rather small and very attractive church that truly encapsulates the isolation of these buildings along the archipelago. Located in the small village of Vilupuji, the church still gives a sense of traditional rural life in this region. It was built at the beginning of the 20th century and is a church with delicate and slender proportions. The tower is the thinnest of all the wooden churches found in the archipelago. This is the church of Rilan village. The present building was built at the beginning of the 20th century. One of the church's most attractive architectural features is the neo-Gothic style crossed dome of nearly 9 meters high. In 1658, the missioners used to call this gathering site a good church, since both Spaniards and the Aboriginal people congregated in peace inside the church. Suspended wooden boats adorn the roof of Nerkon Church. The great skill of carpenters from this archipelago originated from the need to build superb wooden vessels. Most of the problems of building these wooden structures were solved using boat-building techniques, as in this church at Nerkon village, located only 4 kilometers from the main town of Castro. It was built in 1890 using cypress and larch wood. It has a tower 25 meters high and a wide frontal facade. The Renaissance style inspired the architecture of this church. When the town of Castro was founded in 1567, it was built here by the Jesuits to start the evangelization of the archipelago. That first church was later burnt down on 2 occasions by Dutch pirates. The present church was finished in 1912, and unlike other traditional churches of Chiloe, it was designed by the Italian architect Edoardo Provasoli. The architecture is a mix of Gothic and classic design, as interpreted using local building techniques. Both the front, the roof and exterior are lined with galvanized iron. Stepping inside the church, the visitor finds one of the most remarkable examples of wood-based craftsmanship in Latin America. Most of the native woods used in its structure are known locally as redwoods and give this building its warm color. The complex and magnificent wooden dome over the presbytery is 32 meters high. As a World Heritage Site, a great responsibility rests on the authorities to protect and maintain these 16 magnificent churches that represent the history and spiritual tradition of the people of Chiloe. Once again, the locals have risen to the task by forming a foundation called the Friends of the Churches of Chiloe. Supported by the Chilean government, a dedicated professional team of highly qualified carpenters and engineers has the difficult and delicate task of restoring and maintaining these churches. Their task is huge, as seen here in Dalkawe Church, where almost the entire building has to be dismantled as the damaged wood needs to be removed and replaced. Every piece of wood that is in good condition is carefully stored to be reused in the right place once again. This is not just a matter of simply repairing buildings. The challenge is much greater, as it involves a deep understanding of this type of Chilote architecture to reconstruct and repair the essence of each wooden building, highlighting the social and spiritual values that are reflected in them. In the process, the skills of this building tradition are honed once again, and this knowledge is preserved for future generations. Each of these churches represents the spirit of participation, solidarity, and religious aspirations of the surrounding community. Today, a display of the Chilote religious architecture of the Chiloé Archipelago aims not only to educate the public, but also to reveal the complexity of the unique heritage of the archipelago. Here, visitors can explore and learn more about the intricate architecture and the history of these wooden churches. Small-scale replicas help to understand the techniques used in their construction. Along with these miniatures is a collection of relics that were used to decorate various churches throughout Chiloé. These include window frames, wooden facades, church doors, and assorted ornamental crosses in a diverse range of styles. These display not only the numerous stylistic influences, but also those from a natural origin. The diversity of woods used, all native to this area, have made a significant contribution to these unique and iconic buildings. Just like the wooden churches, Chiloé also has its own unique wooden sailing boats, which in the past were the main way of transport for people and cargo around the archipelago. It is believed that the shape of these crafts was adapted from the smaller boats used by the Spanish conquistadors to disembark from the larger sailing vessels. Today, the building of such sailing boats is fast disappearing as motorized vessels replace them. Few carpenters still build these magnificent sinuous boats, but there is hope. Steps are being taken to revive the tradition of building and sailing, as these wooden craft are an important part of the rich maritime heritage of the Chiloé Archipelago. This enchanted archipelago has an intoxicating blend of traditions which created a unique cultural landscape. Modern times are bringing many changes and challenges to this archipelago, but the spirit of the people will continue to create a place where the traditions of the sea and land are forever wedded.